from Pretoria. Is everything all right? People talk, say things.
Hello?
Why didn't you tell me it was out of order? I suppose you think that's funny.
I'm not allowed out the front door.
Who says you weren't?
Them.
Who?
Them.
It was terrible out there. I could hear breathing.
We told you.
Are you worried about the man?
They hate us. That's the truth. They want to kill and torture every one of us. You can see it in their eyes.
Come now, Frederick. Do you dream about unholy things?
I really don't like what's going on here. There's something wrong, and that's a fact.
Wait. What did you dream last night? This manifestation of evil. You must be delivered from evil.
Although edited for television, tonight's thriller contains scenes of suspense and violence which may be unsuitable for young viewers. Parental discretion is advised.
Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, and, of course, the never-to-be-defined, the never-to-be-defined existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, moi, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I'm, of course, Robcasting from the Robservatory to you. You imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. This is Robservations episode number 1061. First of all, for all of you channel members, fans, and people that watch this show casually, I apologize. I've been sort of, I was going to come back last Thursday and do some shows over the weekend, but as you might imagine, I just didn't want to. You know, it's sort of difficult sometimes when there are things going on in the world that literally no one stops talking about, nor should they. But it's difficult to talk about things like movie news and like there are times when I feel that sometimes it's maybe inappropriate to do this show. And I feel that the end of last week was one of those times, and I just... You know, I really didn't know what to say and didn't know how to address things. I had so many different thoughts about what happened last week and where we were at. And, you know, it was great to go to the John Campion meetup. I drove out to Las Vegas again yesterday, and John has been doing his channel meetups with people at various theaters. John went on a 4-city tour over the weekend, starting last Thursday. He went to Albuquerque, New Mexico. He went to Denver, Colorado. He went to Salt Lake City and ended his sojourn in Las Vegas. And we all saw the long walk again in Las Vegas at the AMC Town Center. And I have to say I had a wonderful time. It was a really nice turnout. I met a lot of great people. You guys are also very nice. I can understand why John likes doing it. I mean, it's really fun to go out and meet you, the audience. You know, I feel that it's an odd thing because I try and explain to people I'm just talking into a little green light, and you know, you never know. I mean, I get letters from people, but you don't even know what they sound like. You don't know what they look like. You don't know how tall they are or how short they are. You don't know anything about them. And so it's really nice, I mean, to go out, and I think what John's doing is really, really great, and getting that human connection. I mean, normally I meet people when I go to conventions or events and people come up to me, and I'm one of those people, like, I wouldn't go out into public if I didn't want to meet people on the channel. That's my whole life. I've been going out to events as a fan. I mean, I started as soon as I could take the bus in Seattle, the Metro bus system, when I was 10 years old. Thank you, Jeff Swafford, my friend Jeff. Our parents would let us go, and ever since I did that, I was always going out into the world. I mean, it's wild to think now that our parents would let us go out on a metro bus on Saturday. It was 50 cents, and you could ride as many buses as you wanted for 50 cents. And my friend Jeff would plan out these elaborate bus rides, and we're 10. And we're going all over downtown Seattle and Bellevue, and we'd go to the airport when you could still go watch planes take off and land. We'd go to the Ballard Locks. We go all over the place. And so I was never shy or bashful about going out into the world, and I never had a problem, even though we were 10. So it's really nice to go meet people and talk to people. I grew up working in retail, working in home entertainment from the time I was 13 years old. So talking to people about my favorite art form, which was motion pictures, and sharing the enthusiasm and hearing what other people had to say was always something that was part of my life. So it was very nourishing. It was very nourishing to do that. And I'll tell you something, the state of the world. So last night I'm driving back home. And when you get to the California, so to get to Las Vegas from Los Angeles, you drive on the 15 freeway. And the 15 freeway cuts across the Mojave Desert, and then you can get on the 15 and end up, taking it into the Inland Empire. Well, when you get to exit 1 in Nevada, right before you cross the border, there's a town called Primm. And there's gas stations there. There's a few casinos there, like Whiskey Pete's is there. And so I stopped at the gas station to get gas. I always do that. And this guy comes up to me, and he had a really thick Boston accent, and we were the only people, and this is like 12:30 at night, and there was nobody else there must be like 30 pumps or something. But he comes up to me, and he had a really thick Boston accent, which really delighted me because the night before, Elizabeth and I were watching The Departed because she didn't remember ever seeing it. And of course, The Departed takes place in Boston, and everyone's doing thick Boston accents. So I thought that was kind of a sign, and it delighted me to no end. And the guy had a pickup truck. You could tell, and he had Boston plates. He had Massachusetts plates. And he came up and he said, "Look, my car doesn't work. I'm going to my grandmother's in Southern California. I have no money." And I don't have much money, but he asked me if I could help him out with some gas. So I went over and it was just so funny because I couldn't get past the fact that he had this Boston accent. Maybe I was supposed to meet him because I just watched, in my mind, the Kismet, the butterfly effect, whatever. The fact that this guy was from Boston, and he was it was just funny because the night before I was listening to, I mean, look, in the grand scheme of things, it didn't really mean anything. I don't think it was a sign from God, but it was still fun. It was coincidental, serendipitous, call it what you want. But so I filled up his tank, and I said I made a video about it when it was done, and it's $70 to fill up his tank because I figured, I didn't ask where in Southern California he was going, but I could hear he was talking to his grandmother, and he was worried because he was saying that, I can't explain how to Venmo me money. And I could tell that he was totally sincere. And it was very funny because after I did this, and with his accent, he said, "Hey, what's your name?" And I said, it's Rob. He's like, "Robert, I will be praying for you tonight, Robert." And I don't know if that's a good Boston accent or not, but, and then he crossed himself, and I could hear his grandmother, talking in the background. And I just love the fact that he was a Bostonian, and it was, people have done that for me. I'm sure people have helped me out throughout and I'm not saying this. It was really interesting. I recorded this story. I just kind of was delighted by it. It was just something that happened. But somebody on Instagram said to me, if you do a kindness, you shouldn't tell anybody about it. And he's quoting Bible verses at me. And I thought that was such a weird thing. If I want daily affirmations, people dedicate books to me because of this channel. You guys are the nicest people in the world. I didn't post the story about what happened so a lot of people said it was very nice what I did, and I appreciate that, but I wasn't looking for affirmation. I didn't post it so people would say, "Oh, you're a good guy, Rob," even though a lot of people did. I did it because I was thinking more about the Boston aspect of it all. I was like, it was so, how random on the border of of Nevada and California do I meet this Boston guy who had driven across country from Boston to go to his grandmother's house. And he's got like it was a red pickup. And in the back of the pickup, it looked like he had like ancient car engine parts. I didn't ask him. The whole tableau, I just loved it all. I delighted in it. And I delighted in meeting him and talking with him and the dilemma he had to get to his grandmother's. And he ran out on his debit card, had no more money. And I told him, dude, I'm there all the time. And did I have the $70 to give him? Probably not. As I looked at my bank account when I got up this morning, I'm like, clearly I didn't have that $70. I didn't. It wasn't something I could spare. But work it out, whatever. But it was just a funny thing that it was the last place in the world I thought I would meet somebody from Boston, and that I thought was the fun part of the whole thing. Being nice to somebody is usually my default position. And somebody actually wrote on Instagram, commented that when I was working on Star Trek 13 years ago, so this guy came in, he was working for Bryan Singer, I guess, and he came into my office and I had Hot Toys there, and somehow I had an extra Batman armory, like a Hot Toys Batman armory, a 6-scale Batman armory. And like somehow we were talking and this guy said, I was working for Brian. I came into the office where you were, and we was talking about Hot Toys, and you had an extra Batman armory, and you gave it to me. Like I gave this armory to this other kid, and he was like, I thought that was like the coolest thing. I couldn't believe you did that. But to me, that's kind of always been my default position. Like if I have two things, and because I like finding people that share the same interests, like, hey, here, dude, take this, or dudette, please have this. If I have something, take it. I mean, nothing is so precious that you don't. I mean, look, I'm not going to give people my Blu-ray collection, but if I've got doubles of something, please have it. I would rather give something away than sell it. If you would like it, here, you have it. And it was funny that because I vaguely remembered I did that, but being reminded, you totally forget you do things and somebody reminds you of them and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. And this was from like, well, he remembered that, that I did this thing, that I gave him this thing for him. And I thought that was interesting. And he posted it on this deal. But the idea that some people would accuse you of trying to get clout or curry favor, I understand in the social media era, a lot of people do that. But that's not why I was posting that. It was it was something that happened late at night when I least expected it to happen. And I just thought it was fun to relate that. I like doing little Instagram videos where weird things happen. Like I was buying M&Ms a couple weeks ago and I found an open bag in the M&M container and I was making a funny video and maybe I had a few cocktails at this party. But it was, I like to I don't know. And it was just something that, with the depressing news over the last couple of days, it was just a fun thing to happen, and it made me happy. It put a smile on my face. So I think the guy's name was Michael. So Michael, I hope you made it to your grandmother's house, and our meeting late night at 12:30 at the gas station in Prim, right on the border for Arizona, at Whiskey Pete's and the Chevron, where I always stop. And you have to decide because there's chevrons on either side of the road. But whenever you're going down, there's only one, you can only go off on the right side if you want. I'll tell you a funny thing. I do weird, because I used to drive all over the place. I drive to Seattle a lot. And when I was driving to Seattle, there in Redding, California. So Redding is in Northern California, and it's like the last city or town before you go into the Siskiyous, like Mount Shasta is. And I would leave for Seattle when I drive to Seattle. I'd leave at 6 at night. So I'd leave at 6 p.m. and I would get to Redding usually around 3 in the morning. And then I would fuel up because I'd try and do it in 18 hours. That was my 16 and a half hours is my fastest. Don't ask. LA to Seattle. That's my record. But normally it takes about 18 hours. So I would stop, and there was two, I don't know if that's true now, but there were 2 Denny's on either side of the freeway. And at 3 in the morning, because you play these games with yourself, and I'm like, which Denny's would I go to? Or maybe I would do something like if I see a truck next, I'll go to the one on the right. And if I see, I always play those little games just to amuse myself. Now, I don't tell anybody about this, but that's what I would do. These 2 Denny's, which one would you go to? And I would always trade off usually sometimes, or I, if a truck is coming or a car. Anyway, this is so stupid. I don't even know what I'm saying. But anyway, yes. So I love little things that happen when I drive. Crazy little things. I've had all kinds of weird interludes or stuff that's happened when I've made these long drives places. And I'm usually doing it by myself. So there's nobody. If somebody was there, I probably wouldn't pay attention. I'd be paying attention to them. So anyway, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Just a little a little insight into the life of me. But anyway, I really wanted to get back to discussing something related to movies and television. And luckily, my wish was granted. I found an article in Variety about the value of franchises, comparing and contrasting the value of franchises, which I think is fascinating. There's the Jurassic Park franchise, there's Star Trek, there's Star Wars, there's the MCU, the DCU, there's Mission Impossible, Harry Potter, Doctor Who, all these different franchises. Well, there was an article in Variety that actually analyzed the value of franchises and talked about where are these franchises in terms of their box office viability. Are they profitable for the studios? Like, where are we at in terms of our franchises? So I figured, okay, this is and I figured it would be the kind of thing that you guys would be hopefully interested in hearing. So let's just jump right into it. And I do have some letters to read later, because this is not the longest article in the world. So here it is. It's by Adam Vary, who writes a lot for Variety. Where Hollywood's biggest film franchises stand. Marvel's diminished, DC is rising, and everyone is excited about James Bond. I mean, it's so funny now that Denis Villeneuve is going to direct the next Bond film, and it's going to be another auteurist Bond like what Sam Mendes was doing. I thought that was interesting that people are excited about Bond. But so here is this article. And it's Variety's first franchise scorecard. And this was originally published on September 12th. So, and I missed this, but here we go. Ever since James Bond fired his Walther PPK and Luke Skywalker flipped on his father's lightsaber, franchises have been a cornerstone of the movie business. But as theaters still struggle to return to pre-pandemic revenues, how film studios are managing their crown jewel franchises, most of which are multiple decades old, has come under greater scrutiny than ever. It's not why anyone wanted to be in this business to make the 12th version of something, says one veteran studio executive. With that tension in mind, Variety has launched its first ever franchise scorecard to assess the overall health of 8 of the biggest movie brands. We looked at several key factors. First, to gauge audience interest, we compared the domestic and global box office grosses of the most recent iterations of each franchise with that franchise's historic average starting from 2010, minus the pandemic years of 2020 and 2021, save for No Time to Die. To be fair, we also factored in how well the latest films performed in comparison with the overall box office performance of the respective years they debuted, using data provided by ComScore. For example, 2025 box office is down 17.4 domestically and 10.5 globally against the 2010 to 2024 average. Second, to measure cost effectiveness, we looked at how the most recent iterations have improved on their production budgets after reaching break-even, roughly double global grosses. Finally, we asked nearly 24 industry professionals, from executives to agents to filmmakers, to score each franchise on a scale of 1 to 10 on 3 metrics, which you'll see the chart below: creative health, commercial potential, and saturation in the marketplace, which could include other expressions of the franchise like TV shows and theme parks. The results make clear that while some franchises appear stronger than others, all have at least some room for improvement. Now here, this is interesting. Here is sizing up the chart. I didn't mean to do that. Why is that happening? Don't do that. There we go. Well, no, that's not what I wanted to do. I don't understand. There we go. Okay. Or not. But here is the sizing up of the IPs. Here's the chart. Let me make sure if I can get this whole thing in here. That's close. So these are Star Wars, Jurassic Park, the MCU, DC, Mission Impossible, Star Trek, and the Hunger Games. And, of course, James Bond is up there. And this is on this, there's market saturation is on the top left out of 10. And then you have creative health is on the bottom. So the things that are more left are less creative. They're less creatively healthy. So as you can see at the bottom is Star Trek on all these counts, market saturation, creative health. Star Trek is not doing well. And for anyone who's watched this channel for any length of time, this shouldn't be surprising to you. But James Bond, the creative health and the commercial potential seems to be pretty well up there. Star Wars, the creative health isn't so great, but the commercial potential is. Same with the MCU and DC. Mission Impossible's kind of down. Hunger Games, we'll see. We've got another Hunger Games movie coming out, so who knows. But anyway, there you go. There's this chart. Once the undisputed, so here we go. Box office is down. Return on budget, kind of neutral. Once the undisputed champ, Marvel released 3 films this year that are all dramatically underperformed compared with their predecessors and barely eked out a profit. And that's not considering marketing costs. The early 2020s rush to feed streaming shows to Disney Plus also earns Marvel the highest market saturation scores of the group. Joining the MCU is still a crazy life-changing opportunity, says one top agent, but I don't have as many clients asking to do one as there were 5 years ago. So that's interesting. Actors who wanted a piece of Marvel aren't so keen anymore because the return is not as great. Many credit the studio for reducing its output to right the ship and see 2 upcoming Avengers movies as, in the words of one exec, bulletproof. But the standalone movies are in trouble because you feel that you can miss them now. Subsequently, the MCU's earning potential has taken a hit. Any movie could be huge, but nothing is close to a guarantee, says one director. Most recent films, we all know, Captain America Brave New World, Thunderbolts, and Fantastic Four First Steps. And then you see here on the chart the average domestic performance was down 24.9%. The average global performance, because a lot of the time they've lost China, is 44.9%, and the average budget improvement is 28.2%, meaning you can make Thunderbolts for a little less money. Then, of course, we come to DC. And as you can see, their box office is up, and the return on budget is a little up too, especially compared to what had been coming out. Although Superman, James Gunn's first film in the rebooted DC universe, grossed less globally than 2013's Man of Steel, David Cornsweet's Last Son of Krypton is blasted past the full breadth of the previous DC regime, especially its lamentable post-pandemic slate, by a considerable margin. Gunn did the most important thing. The first movie he made was really good, says one communications exec. If Batman and Superman are humming at the same time, there's no limit to what they can do. While DC has the second highest scores for creative health, uncertainty about its 2026 films place its earning potential scores in the middle of the pack. I wish Supergirl and Clayface weren't the next ones, says another marketing exec, but it's a pretty confident first step. So, in the case of DC, their domestic performance compared to the rest of the DC stuff that had come out in the last 5 years, they're up 78.9%. Global performance is up 22.6%. And the budget improvement is 71.8%. Then we come to the Jurassic Park franchise. Their box office, believe it or not, is down, and the return on budget, however, is way up. Jurassic World Rebirth ranks just below Lilo and Stitch as the highest-grossing film of the summer of 2025, leading to a common refrain and high scores for earning potential. Dinosaurs do not seem to be going out of style, says a distribution executive. It doesn't matter if it's Jeff Goldblum, Chris Pratt, or Scarlett Johansson. That said, Rebirth is the first Jurassic World film to gross under $1 billion. That's insane. And its low creative scores indicate wariness with the dino-chomping dumb humans formula. They're just remaking the same movie over and over, says a screenwriter. It's almost like a CBS procedural of a blockbuster, adds a filmmaker. The quality has been all over the map, and it doesn't affect it at all. Universal's slower release cadence may help. They've done the most with the least, partially because they've made it scarce, says a producer. Even so, the Camp Cretaceous and Chaos Theory animated series on Netflix and the franchise's omnipresence in the theme parks led to some of the highest market saturation scores. All you have to do is go to the park to understand how important that franchise is to them, says an exec. So the domestic performance is down by 12.5%. The global performance is down 25.1%. But remember, you're talking a movie that still grossed close to $1 billion. Now, not as much as the last 3 Jurassic World movies, but that's not a failure. You know, I mean, we're talking, this franchise is incredibly valuable. Kids love dinosaurs. Like I say, the only thing better than dinosaurs eating people, actually, the thing that comes right behind dinosaurs eating people are apes on horseback with rifles, and in my mind, ninjas. And if you can get both or all 3 into a movie, you've really got something. And then, of course, the budget improvement was up 275% because obviously the last Jurassic Park movie was insanely expensive. Pardon me, Jurassic World movie, insanely expensive. Then we get to Mission Impossible. The box office was right in the middle. The return on budget was way, way down because this movie, this Mission Impossible movie, Final Reckoning, cost a boatload of money. People talk about it had a budget of $400 million. I've heard it was way more than that. And whether somebody should look, I think God bless Tom Cruise and everything he's doing with the Mission Impossible franchise, and God bless Chris McQuarrie. But when you get to that kind of budget level, there's no way. If you can't return money to the studio, and there's no reason to believe if you spend $500 million on a Mission Impossible movie, you're never going to get that money back. And there's no reason, in my mind, to be an effective producer. You do have to take into consideration the studio that's releasing your movie and that's putting up the budget. I think an intelligent producer or any producer worth their salt understands the assignment. I mean, this is not the early 90s at Silver Pictures. If you're going to renovate your Frank Lloyd Wright house, you can't, go chasing snow like with Die Hard 2 and expect people to keep paying for your whatever you need to be paid for. You can't keep doing that. So it's important to keep those budgets down and be mindful of the return to your studio. And also, I would say this. I mean, I've only ever really been an independent producer or somebody who's worked at a lower budget level. The biggest movie I was involved with as a producer was Agent Cody Banks. And that was in the low 20 millions, believe it or not. And if they'd listened to us, we could have turned that into a very viable franchise. But what we wanted to make was Ferris Bueller meets James Bond, and they decided to turn it into a tween movie, which, God bless them, but it certainly did not become the Back to the Future-esque franchise that we were hoping. But hey, what can you do? I'm the only single card credited producer in the main titles, which come at the end of Agent Cody Banks. Madonna shares her title. That's right. She's a producer of Agent Cody Banks. Jason Alexander shares his title. All the executive producers. But the Bobster here, my name is emblazoned across the screen, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I negotiated. I didn't get that because that's what I deserved. So, the grosses for Tom Cruise's possibly concluding chapter as death-defying super spy Ethan Hunt were on par with the franchise, but the gargantuan $400 million budget leaves the Final Reckoning deep in the red, and with unanswerable questions about how the franchise can move forward, dampening all of its scores. The greatest strength is Tom running, but what happens when Tom can't run anymore, says one screenwriter. That franchise is suffering from a generational divide, says a top exec. It was an older skewing audience, adds a marketing exec. It's tough when you have a franchise hung on a single actor. I'm just not sure how much equity there is left in that. Indeed, a Cruise-free mission seems like a non-starter. He is the franchise, says another top exec. Remember when they put Jeremy Renner in a Bourne movie? You do remember that, don't you? which, by the way, I actually kind of liked, just because I think Jeremy Renner can make something work no matter what it is. So here we go. The most recent when Cortez went to the New World, he burned his ships. The Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, the domestic performance is up 16.4%, but that's not saying much when your movie costs that much. The global performance was actually down 2.1%, and the budget improvement was down 50% because of how expensive the movie is. You don't want that to be a part of what you're doing. Not so great. Then we come to the Hunger Games, of which there's another Hunger Games coming out. Box office is down, but the return on the budget is up. Conspicuously lower grosses for 2023 is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I mean, obviously, you don't have Katniss Everdeen, so there you go. Were more than offset by its relatively lean budget. By the way, directed by Francis Lawrence, who directed Mockingjay 1 and 2, and is directing the next one, and Catching Fire, and he will be directing the next one. He also directed The Long Walk for a budget of $20 million, which, even though it opened a little soft domestically, a lot going on at number 4, it's still going to turn a profit worldwide, I think. The conspicuously lower grosses for 2023 is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes were more than offset by its relatively lean budget, and many singled out the franchise's YA roots as an invaluable asset. You've got to incubate a younger audience cyclically to keep the franchise healthy, says a franchise veteran. Adds a screenwriter. They have source material that is solid. They have a plan. So many of these franchises don't. And it's great that the Hunger Games have had books to work off of, which is always, when you've got a good story that was written by the creator, you're always better off than if you have to come up with yet another Jurassic Park movie after Michael Crichton, rest in peace, has been in the ground for a long time. The next film, 2026's Sunrise on the Reaping, based on the Suzanne Collins best-selling book, boasts an all-star cast. Ralph Fiennes, Elle Fanning, Jesse Plemons, Kieran Culkin, Maya Hawke, as younger versions of prominent Hunger Games characters. But the absence of Katniss Everdeen ultimately places this franchise scores on the lower end. They had lightning in a bottle with Jennifer Lawrence, says a comms exec. I don't know how you get that back. And here we look at The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Domestic performance was down 39%. Global performance is down 46.8%. But the budget improvement sends it up at 148.4%. So it's all a trade-off. And remember, I mean, you had 4 movies with Katniss Everdeen. So she was the star of The Hunger Games. And I understand, everybody wants to make money. So this prequel franchise, and as far as prequel franchises go, this one's pretty damn good. At least the first film was definitely worth watching, Although whenever I think about President Snow, remember that song Informer? Remember that Informa? And you don't know what I'm talking about. Some people do. By Snow. Whenever I think of, I don't know why I think about that song. Those weird connections pop culture brains make. Star Wars. We get to Star Wars. Even though 2026 is The Mandalorian and Grogu will be the first Star Wars feature since 2019, the saturation scores remain high thanks to the profusion of Disney Plus shows and the ubiquity of tie-in games, toys, and ephemera. So the box office obviously is down because there hasn't been a Star Wars movie in a long time, not since 2019's Exegol battle finale of course, The Rise of Skywalker. Return on budget, it's sticking around because the Star Wars franchise is still making money, but not as much money as they want. I don't think The Mandalorian and Grogu is going to be a $1 billion grossing film. Why you're watching a glorified TV movie in a theater, which I think could either work. I'm sure it'll be fine to pass the time away, but is that really what you want out of your Star Wars franchise? Depending on how good Starfighter is, that's really the first Star Wars movie. We'll see what direction. It takes place 5 years after the Battle of Exegol, as we found out at Star Wars Celebration. We'll see. I want it to be good. I take no pleasure. I want every movie to be good, and I want franchise movies to be good. Why would you want them to not be good? It's omnipresent, says one marketing exec. Earning potential is also tied for first. It should be the biggest franchise of all time, says one producer, but recurring questions about quality, along with multiple projects stuck in development, had several ranking this franchise worst for creative health. When you don't have a film to show for 7 years, that's just not healthy, says a comms exec. And the next example will be a derivative film based on a television show, adds the producer. They stopped making it special, and nothing makes me more mad. The sky is the limit if they could get it right. And then they analyzed the most recent film, The Rise of Skywalker. The domestic performance was down 14.7%. The global performance was down 15.5%. And the budget improvement, well, it did go up to 57.1%, which that's not surprising. Now, this is interesting. Look, Star Wars, we talk about Star Wars so much, I don't think we need to rehash it here, but what Star Wars really needs, Star Wars should be the granddaddy franchise of all time, but I'll tell you something. When it comes to science fiction and epic science fiction on the big screen or the small screen, we are being given a bounty of riches, of very smart TV shows. The third season of Foundation was wonderful, and when you get to the end of the season, they're doing a really interesting job combining Asimov's robot stories, like the Elijah Bailey robot novels, By Jupiter, The Caves of Steel, with his Foundation mythology. And if you know the books or know the stories, the end of Foundation Season 3 was very intriguing. But the Foundation series has gotten better exponentially season by season. This third season was terrific, and you look at it and you're like, there's a very high level and a sophistication of the science fiction that you're being presented in Foundation. The world building, the design work, the globe trotting to different planets, and the characterization, and really the concepts we're wrestling with. Alien Earth. As much as that show frustrates me, it's still a handsomely mounted show. There's a lot of ideas behind it for all mankind. And these are just the overtly science fiction shows. Denis Villeneuve's Dune soon-to-be trilogy. TV shows like Severance, or there's Silo, which is another literary adaptation. There's a lot of great science fiction, both on screen and streaming, and you look at this stuff and you're like, okay, well, a franchise like Star Wars needs to step up because it's not delivering the goods. And so often I don't understand why the writing falls down with these franchises. So next, we get to James Bond, which is really interesting. Denis Villeneuve will be directing the next Bond film. We don't yet know who James Bond is. The Broccoli family has no control, no creative input, nothing to do with the Bond franchise, so it'll be interesting to see how they change it. I hope they keep the Bond theme. I think they kind of have to. I mean, since 1962, we've had that theme. I hope they keep the gun barrel opening, and I hope they keep the format of having some kind of a pre-title sequence and keep those title sequences, because that's kind of something that's built into Bond. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, and that's been going on since 1962. The real question with the Bond franchise that I'm a Bond fan from all the way back into my days being a wee lad. I was watching Bond when I was 5. Is James Bond even viable in the world today? Can you remember, a lot of people don't remember this, but when James Bond was introduced to movie screens in 1962 in Dr. No, you were less than 20 years away from the end of World War II. Everybody kind of went home, started to rebuild their lives, and in America, the middle class was built in the 50s, and you had a lot of people. You had jet planes were flying all over the world now. And what James Bond did was basically show the world had become sort of middle class after World War II. And the Bond films, combined with like Playboy magazine, Hugh Hefner, The Promise of Playboy clubs, Bond was all over the pages of Playboy magazine. The Bond franchise was sort of the ultimate wish fulfillment for 30 and 40-year-old dudes that had settled down with their wives and were now living the American dream. But that American dream was not really exciting, so here comes a character, James Bond, who's the most exciting dude you know. And that's where the Bond brand was sort of cemented as wish fulfillment for sort of middle-class men in their 30s and 40s, and really represented something that men wanted to be him, women wanted to sleep with him, that whole adage. And that was something when I was a kid, I was attracted to entertainments that had very strong male leads. As a kid, I wasn't too keen on kids programming, but I really loved watching characters like James T. Kirk, my favorite fictional character, and then, of course, James Bond, because these were people that you could aspire to be. And if you think about it, what I loved about James Bond was not only that he was a badass, but he was smart. Like, he knew all this stuff. Like, when I was a kid, I didn't know what caviar was. I understood what champagne was, but, I didn't know what Bollinger was, and I didn't understand that champagne could be served at a certain temperature. But he knew, and I knew he knew, and while I didn't understand any of it, and I didn't understand, like apparently you get caviar and you get to take a woman's panties off. I don't know. How does that work? I never got that when I was a kid. Didn't understand, but James Bond knew, and I'm like, I want to use caviar to take girls' panties off. Little did I know what the reality of that situation is. And frankly, I never learned to use caviar to seduce a woman, but maybe there's still time. Everything still works here. I know, could lose about 50 pounds. I get it. But still, the Bond franchise represented something in the 60s that it doesn't represent now. And unfortunately, all these other action franchises, when you see things like everything from the Matrix to the Bourne films, to the Mission Impossible movies, to Hong Kong cinema, Bond has been outclassed. And they have to figure out, what I'm really interested in is the Daniel Craig era of Bond. I loved Casino Royale because there was still fun to be had. But Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, Spectre, and especially No Time to Die, where fucking Bond dies, where, spoiler alert, he came in a submarine, but he's like, I'm not going to go because I can't genetically be with the woman I love. Maybe they'll have a cure, dude. It was so dumb. You came in a submarine, just go down in the basement, go back and get in your submarine, and even when the missiles blow up Dr. No's squared headquarters, you can still get the hell out. But he didn't. But whatever. I'll complain. The Daniel Craig era, love Casino Royale, really disappointed in everything else. And don't tell me how great Skyfall is. I know. It made $1 billion plus. I get it. Good for it. It's a movie where James Bond fails every step of the way in that movie. He fails. Then he even fails playing Home Alone. Does not save M. And you're supposed to like that movie, but everyone likes it because, hey, it's beautifully made. But what Bond was doing was emulating The Dark Knight. Javier Bardem is the Joker, and the plotting in that movie is a little silly, and it just shows Bond as being very ineffectual. He can't even save M's life, in the Scottish Highlands at his home. And what they did with Blofeld, it's all gobbledygook. But what they're going to do with the Bond franchise, in my mind, as a Bond lover, is to make sure that they figure out a way to make James Bond relevant in this day and age. Does anybody really want a sexist, misogynist dinosaur who's a product of the Cold War? They can't play that card anymore. It's a new world. I mean, if you go back and you watch one of the great... So a lot of people forget this, but Bond movies came out like every 2 years starting in 1962. Sometimes you would get two Bond movies in the same year. But... So every 2 years, for the most part. I mean, there was 3 years between Man with the Golden Gun and Spy Who Loved Me. But it wasn't until 1989 with License to Kill, which didn't do very well anyway. Unfortunately, Timothy Dalton's last Bond movie. But then it was 6 years till 1995's GoldenEye that we got a new Bond, and we got Pierce Brosnan. GoldenEye is a very cool movie, but it even has a cooler ad campaign. The key art, the teaser posters, what they did with the gun barrel. But go back and watch those early Bond, watch the first GoldenEye teaser, It's a Different World. That's some fucking marketing, man. They knew what they were doing. When they re-injected, there was a lot of excitement over Pierce Brosnan coming back. That movie was really good. Yes, Sean Bean dies in that movie, but Sean Bean's great too. Alex Trevelyan. I mean, Xenia Onatopp, Famke Johnson. Come on. Fucking men to death. What a great femme fatale. The only problem with GoldenEye is James Bond disappears so you can go meet Alan Cumming, Nightcrawler, and you can hang out with the femme fatale in Russia. The love interest is a very nice woman. But anyway, I'm going on and on and on about Bond only because I love it. I really want to see this franchise come back. Don't know if it can. The real question is, are franchises immortal? Anyway, let me read on and ponder this question for a moment because I want to come back to it. Following Daniel, first of all, box office was up. Return on budget was up. So we'll see where it's going to go. Following Daniel Craig's 2021 swan song, Bond is getting a tip-to-toe reboot with new producers Amy Pascal and David Heyman. David Heyman, I trust. Amy Pascal, I don't know. We'll see. A new screenwriter, Stephen Knight, who's made it his life's ambition to write a Bond film. Very excited about Stephen Knight writing this thing. And a new director in Denis Villeneuve, earning the franchise the highest scores of the group. So the people that were looking at franchises have given the Bond franchise the highest marks, which I think is sort of foolish. But even though as much as I am a lifelong Bond fan and love the Bond franchise, again, more than ever, you had Daniel Craig back in the aughts who started playing Bond. So he was, 2006 when Casino Royale came out, and then he played Bond till 2021. That's a long stretch as Bond. How do you reinvent Bond for today? Are you going to go younger? Are you going to delve into Bond's literary past and make him a naval commander? Are we going to see that? If you start with a young Bond, you can actually do something really interesting that we haven't seen before. You can see Bond on a mission for the Navy, for the Royal Navy. Could be interesting. That way you could start Bond as a much younger person and believable. So it's not a prequel where he's a kid, cuckoo, and they're talking about fucking Blofeld and him step-parent. I don't even know what that bullshit was. It was so stupid. But I get it. But this could be really, really interesting. And if you showed us, like, the pre-title sequence could be Bond in the British Navy doing some cool shit. I don't know where and when, but it's got to be, again, pretty recent, because you have to then explain that Bond is, you reinvent him and he's a newly minted naval agent, but give him a killer you give Bond a killer pre-title sequence and show him now as a British naval officer, and that's why MI6 tapped him like, hey, buddy, look, this kid's got, he's got some cojones and the chops. Let's get him. So we'll see that. But anyway, I mean, maybe. It's just an idea. So the franchise got the highest scores of the group that they polled based purely on the pedigree of who's at the helm. You've got one of the great filmmakers of the modern era, says one studio exec. Denis made Dune both accessible and profound, adds a filmmaker. He could do the same with Bond. I don't want Bond to be profound. I don't want profundity in my Bond. I want Bond to kick ass. I want him to fuck beautiful women. I want him to drink great booze. I want him to smoke good cigars. I want him to go to very exotic places, drive fast cars, and have basically a good time doing it. Give me the fun Bond. Give me the Spy Who Loved Me Bond, not the Roger Moore quippy Bond. Give me something a little hardcore. Then I don't need that. But, you know, if you want to give me an undersea city, throw that in there. Don't make the villain another tech bro. The Bond franchise had tech bros before tech bros even existed. Give me some megalomaniac that wants to destroy the world. And I don't mean any college professors. Okay? I want a real megalomaniac. I want somebody with a philosophy who wants to kill everybody on Earth, and Bond's got to stop him. Give me some of that. Why can't I have that? Bring it back. The biggest unknown, of course, is who will play 007. I'd be a little concerned about getting a young audience depending on casting, says a top exec. The actor will be cast in 2026, and the film likely won't arrive in theaters until 2028, giving Bond the lowest market saturation scores in the group. But with Amazon now at the helm, in its joint venture with the Broccoli family, there are many questions about the company's plans to expand the franchise into new areas. The scarcity worked in their favor, says one marketing exec, but if they start building a Bond universe, does that dilute the brand? A Bond universe, look, you know, whenever I think back to how to do business, this is going to seem odd. I think back to where you probably, if you don't read comics, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. But back in 1994, you had a bunch of Marvel creators that were, their books were minting money. Jim Lee was working on X-Men. Todd McFarlane was working on Spider-Man. Rob Liefeld was working on X-Force. He was creating characters out of the wazoo. And then you have people like Jim Valentino, and you have Will Portasio. Anyway, long story short, they all went and founded a comic company called Image. They all defected. And when Image first came out, they were printing money. They were making millions of dollars for each book every month. Unfortunately, the only person who got his books out on time, all the time, was Todd McFarlane with his new comic Spawn. That's what you got to do. What is the old Burnett axiom? Never put your universe before your characters and your story. What the Bond franchise needs is a chef's kiss of a film. A brilliant movie that reestablishes the brand and leaves you breathless with anticipation. It's got to be hard-hitting. It's got to be awesome. It's got to be fun. And it's got to be kick-ass. And you've got to have, Bond has to be a fucking badass. He's got to be politically incorrect. Look, the man is on the edge every single day. Could be the last day of his life. The reason he likes the finer things in life is because he could die tomorrow. You know, that's why he sleeps with beautiful women. That's why he eats caviar from whatever lake in Russia or whatever inlet from the ocean they got it in. And that's why he knows how to refrigerate Bollinger at whatever 38.6, whatever it's, you know, that's why Bond is Bond. Give me that Bond. Everybody knows what Bond should be. None of this morose, yeah, I've missed a step. Oh, I'm sorry, I got shot off a train. Let me go mope and play drinking games with this scorpion. None of that crap. Give me a Bond that I want to be again. I didn't want to be Daniel Craig, except when he was with Eva Green. But I want to get a Bond that is kick-ass and is escapist and takes me away, like Calgon. That's what I want. That's what I want. Most recent film, No Time to Die. The domestic performance was up 22%. The global performance was at 18%. And the budget improvement was 103.6%. Now, you knew I'd get here. I don't think this is last. Is this last? Maybe. Star Trek. A moribund franchise. We haven't had a Star Trek movie. Except if you want to include that horrible, god-awful soda stick swill called Section 31, you can, but that was a TV movie. But wow, don't do that. So Star Trek, the last Star Trek movie did not make any money. As a matter of fact, all three of the bad robot Star Trek movies didn't make that much money. They cost a lot, and they didn't make as much money as they should have. Anyway, the box office is down and the return on budget is way down because they haven't made a movie in 9 years. They can't seem to get... And by the way, whatever Star Trek movie is going to get made, they're in a Star Trek the Motion Picture situation in the sense that Star Trek the Motion Picture had the costs associated with the sunk costs that Star Trek Planet of the Titans, the first Star Trek movie that was being developed at Paramount, which never got made. They wanted Toshiro Mifune to play Klingon. How badass would that have been? That movie never got made, but they absconded with the design of the Discovery with that, Ken Adam and Ralph McQuarrie's design. And then they ruined that design. They ruined the Discovery design. They took something that was perfectly good and they ruined it. Kind of like all of modern Star Trek. But anyway, so their priority at Skydance is to make a Star Trek movie. That's what they want to do. They want to get the guy that directed the USS Callister episodes of Black Mirror, Toby Haynes, I think, to direct, which would be fine. It's all about the script. But the problem is they still don't want to make a Star Trek movie. If you want to have a really fun time, and I said this, there's this girl called Bunny Tail Reacts. And I thought she was much younger, but I think she's like 39. And she went and reviewed every original series episode. And she also reviewed the movies. And I have to tell you, her reviews of the movies, because she goes into it not knowing anything about them, there's no preconceived notion. She's not some major Star Trek. She's become a major Star Trek fanatic. But you watch those and you realize, the way her last reviews for Star Trek 2, 3, even 3, Star Trek 2, 3, 4, and 6, her reviews when she's watching them made me tear up. Just her reactions. Star Trek is missing that. Star Trek is a goofy show. They need to bring, you know what they need to bring to Star Trek? They need to bring that great sense of humanity, camaraderie, but what they need to bring to Star Trek again is awe, wonder, romanticism, and intellect. That's what Star Trek needs. It is bereft of all that. And, when I say romanticism, it doesn't mean Spock's going to fuck 4 of his crewmates. That's not what we're looking for, you idiots. He would never do that. He's terribly out of character. Anyway, Star Trek is about to celebrate its 60th anniversary next year, yet the franchise, which last graced the big screen with 2016's Star Trek Beyond, has never gone this long between movies. I'm so sad they haven't done anything with it, says an industry veteran. If David Ellison is smart, this will be a priority. The abundance of Paramount Plus shows and the apparent box office ceiling for the franchise, its films have never grossed more than $500 million globally, have some wondering if Trek should remain a TV brand. No, it shouldn't remain a TV brand because you've had some great theatrical movies that did very well. They just weren't modern. Star Trek The Wrath of Khan cost like 11 million, made like 80. You know, good return on its investment. The problem is nobody knows how to make Star Trek anymore. It doesn't work. Nobody cares. It's a moribund franchise that's from a different time. And you don't need to reinvent it and make it like Star Wars. You need to reinvent Star Trek and make it into Star Trek. But nobody knows how to do that because the people that are working on the franchise never liked Star Trek in the first place. How can you have people that didn't like or don't understand Star Trek working on Star Trek unless, of course, there are people like Nicholas Meyer who knew nothing about Star Trek at all, but he was classically educated, so he understood the archetypes. And he knew, oh, it's Horatio Hornblower. I get it. Okay. As I've always said, go back to Paramount, Mission Impossible. I'm beating a dead horse, but I'm going to say it again. Eric Jedrinson, the co-writer of Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning, don't hold that against him. He was the supervising producer of HBO's Band of Brothers. He was hired by Donald DeLine back in the short-lived Donald DeLine era of Paramount. He wrote Star Trek: The Beginning, which took place 8 years after the end of Enterprise. Canonical, good. It's got your Starfleet Academy bent. I'm sure 1,000 times better than we're going to get in that whatever that TV show they've made is. And you've got new characters. Go make that movie and cap it at $100 million. Get somebody who really knows what they're doing. You make Star Trek The Beginning, and basically, you know who should direct it? Chris McQuarrie should direct it. Jedrinson McQuarrie should rewrite Jedrinson's script. They didn't even know where they were going to go with it, but it deals with the outbreak of the Romulan War. It is very topical. Go do that. How many times have you developed Star Trek for 100,000? Stop wasting your money. Anyway, you've got it. You've already paid for it. And as Eric Jedrinson will tell you, what he wanted to do was the Odyssey and the Iliad. Go figure. You know, when I hear somebody talking about Star Trek and they wanted to do their version of the Odyssey and the Iliad with Star Trek, I'm like, I'm so in. That was back in 2005 and 6, dudes. And look what's happened to look what they did to my boy. Anyway, let's go on. One filmmaker points out that J.J. Abrams' 2009 Star Trek reboot brought this Star Wars thrill that you couldn't get anywhere else, but that isn't the case anymore. Still, many are hopeful that a new filmmaker can set Trek back to warp speed. Says one top exec, someone's going to have a disruptive approach for it to be relevant again. You mean a disruptive approach? Here's a disruptive approach. Make it good. Make it thoughtful. Make it epic. A Star Trek movie should feel like fucking Interstellar. Or a Star Trek movie should feel like, well, you could do a Galaxy Quest version of it, I guess. But really, it should be thoughtful. It should be impactful. Star Trek should pack an emotional wallop. You know, it really should. Star Trek 2 is a low-budget movie. If you look at Star Trek 2, it's basically a bottle show. There's no exteriors in Star Trek 2. It's all sets. They hired Harv Bennett, and they made it like a TV show. Of course, TV shows are a lot more expensive now. And anyway, don't get me started. The domestic performance of the last Star Trek movie, Star Trek Beyond, was down 37.5%. Global performance was down 39%. And the budget improvement was 18.6%. And let's not forget, Star Trek at its core, one of the reasons that people can't make it work, especially in this day and age, is Star Trek is about constitutional America going into space. It's about American exceptionalism. Yes, it's multicultural, but it's multicultural as if the world accepted American democracy and our values and took those into space. That was something that was underlying in Star Trek. People today wouldn't like that, but part of that's why Star Trek was effective. Anyway, that is Variety's scorecard about franchises. What do you think? What do you like? Do you buy into any of this? Look, here's the thing. As with anything, especially with entertainment, storytelling, it's all about the writing, the story, and the characters. You have to start there. And people have to really understand how franchises work. Look, the dinosaur thing's always going to work because kids always love dinosaurs. But I thought Jurassic World Refund was kind of a As much as the actors gave it their all, but they had nothing to do. The story wasn't interesting. You started out telling us in a Jurassic Park movie or Jurassic World movie that, well, nobody cares about dinosaurs anymore. They've all moved back to the equatorial regions. We're closing up the paleontology section of our museum in New York. And you're like, what? It's kind of like what happened at the beginning of Star Trek Beyond. Kirk is fucking bored, which we saw in this season of Strange New Worlds, too. I'm bored. Look, you know who wrote that shit? Some millennial. Or some Gen Z person, whatever. I'm bored. Captain Kirk being bored is the dumbest shit ever. And if you put those words in Captain Kirk's mouth, and you know what? I'm not going to say who did, because I was disappointed. I expected the man who starred in Spaced would do better. But Simon, Kirk's bored? Come on, bruh. No, don't do that. If you're bored... If Captain Kirk is bored, you don't have Star Trek. So anyway, what do you guys think? What do you think? See, the problem, you know what I think the real problem is with a lot of these franchises? If you think about the franchises that we used to get, they were not franchises that were spread over decades. Maybe a decade. Like Back to the Future came out in 85. And when did Back to the Future 2 and 3 come out? Was it 89? Boom. So Back to the Future basically belonged to this 5-year period of time. That was it. So it was an 80s franchise. Back to the Future did not extend outward. Lethal Weapon. Lethal Weapon went on for a little longer, but you started in 87. You went into the 90s. Lethal Weapon 3, by the way, didn't really have a script, but whatever. You still love Riggs and Murtaugh. Lethal Weapon to Lethal Weapon 4. Period of time. Nobody's making, thank God, Lethal Weapon movies into the 2020s. I mean, Riggs and Murtaugh. And nor do they go back and reboot them, because Lethal Weapon and Back to the Future belong to the time in which they were made. As any good franchise, all the great franchises, when Hollywood decided to reboot everything, and like, how'd that Crow remake work out for you? Huh? It didn't. Because franchises, and this is something, franchises are as much tied to the zeitgeist of the time in which they came out as anything else. Now, sure, you can bring back stuff, but you have to be very aware that what you're doing is you're taking something that was a natural evolution of the time in which it originally came out, and you're trying to transpose that where its core is from a different time. And you're like, well, let's bring it over. Let's bring it up 5 decades. In the case of Star Trek or even Star Wars, I mean, in 1977, by the way, Star Wars, in 2 years, it's 50. 50. Now, kids love Star Wars because it's kind of timeless and it will always appeal to the kid in all of us. So every kid that grows up can have a Star Wars period of time. But don't forget, Star Wars was born originally out of George Lucas and what was going on in the 1970s. Now, you can transpose it because you can keep that fairy tale element going. But all of our franchises, James Bond really was a product of the Cold War. When M called him remember, Judi Dench, when she became M, called Bond a sexist, misogynist dinosaur in 1995. She called him that 30 years ago. And then we still got this by the time you get to the latter half of the Daniel Craig era, what time does he belong in? Who is James Bond? How does he relate? He's kind of like living in a nondescript world. Like even when you see him running around London in Skyfall, when is that? It's it's completely timeless, which is not what Bond was all about. Bond was very much a product of his time. And the Daniel Craig era sort of took Bond out of time and put him in sort of this timeless state. And so, like, when you get to Spectre and you're meeting Blofeld and you're seeing his plan, it's like, this is, who cares? I mean, there's a big car chase with what's his face? Drax. Why am I drawing a blank? I'm getting old. There's a car chase in Spectre where there's like no other cars except the 2 cars in the chase at night on the empty streets. Who wants to have a car chase on empty streets? You're watching this, and it is the most non-exciting car chase ever, even though Sam Mendes is directing it, because there's no danger. They don't know, like the Daniel Craig franchise had no connection to the time in which they were made. And it was this weird, they wanted to connect everything and have their cake and eat it too. What they did with the Bond franchise in the Craig era after Casino Royale is kind of a travesty. Because they were, again, like what they did in the 70s with Bond, they were chasing trends. Let's make it like The Dark Knight. Let's make it like the Bourne movies. We'll cut Quantum of Solace like a Bourne movie, even though it's not shot like a Bourne movie. We don't have the coverage, so we'll just do quick cutting, which means it's incoherent. The reason that the Bourne movies worked from an editorial standpoint is Greengrass, as fast as those movies are cut, and I would say that if you get to the third one, the Bourne Supremacy, if you look at it from a filmmaking perspective and you look at how that movie is cut, it's a new genre of filmmaking. I don't know what you'd call it. Because geographically, even though it's cut, you never lose where you're at. The filmmaking, Greengrass did something really interesting. He created this weird style where it's so fast, but you always know where you're going. You're never lost. A lot of filmmakers don't know how to do that. What you do is you do that kind of fast cutting in post because you're trying to save the movie. Your fight scenes don't work very well. The pacing doesn't work very well. So you throw caution to the wind and cut the shit out of your movie and hope people won't notice. Then you get something like Snake Eyes, which was fucking bullshit. But when they did that in Quantum of Solace, the movie wasn't shot that way. So you're like, yo, I know Stuart Baird edited that film, but they probably told him it's got to be like, make it like Bourne. Don't do that. Don't do that. We all know we know you're tricking us, and you're not tricking us well. And there's a lot of great stuff in Quantum of Solace. I mean, I'm not Peter Avellino, and if he was here, he would poo-poo me. But I'm a Quantum of Solace apologist. I want a Quantum of Solace about my position on Quantum of Solace. It'd make me feel better. It is not a great movie, but Olga Kurylenko is a great Bond girl. The villain's not very interesting, but I like his linen suits. And, but there's a lot of stuff in that movie that I like. Mathis is great. Anyway, you got to make your franchise relevant to the audiences of today. The Mission Impossible franchise. The reason that you got to the point where, the Final Reckoning, they were making that shit up, and then they had to make it up again, and those set pieces, that submarine set piece was an all-timer. An all-timer. One of the great, it's hard to make set pieces underwater tough because they can't move very fast. That was what McQuarrie and Tom Cruise did. That's one of the great unsung action sequences of all time. I would die on that hill. Check it out. But remember, when you're trying to reinvent franchises that belong to different decades, sometimes they're 2 decades removed and you keep trying to make them relevant. Sometimes you just have to stop and go, I understand the impulse. We're trying to get rid of any kind of risk, but you can't do that. You're going to see it on the channel. I didn't want to release it. No, I was going to put it out on Thursday, but then it's like, I'm not going to put it out. I interviewed Roy Lee, one of my personal heroes. And Roy Lee told me something really interesting. Like, I've talked to him about trying to, get something going. And I never understood. I was like, what do you, I know his taste, but I said, what do you look for, man? Like, what is it with all the diversity of project? Sometimes he goes after IP and gets Minecraft and gets Warhammer and gets the Lego movie and all that. But I asked him, when you're reading a script, and he like basically is a one-man band. I said to him, I called him, I said, you're like M. You're like MI6's M. You have all these agents out in the field, but you're the intelligence. You get all the intelligence in, and you're making the decisions. He's like a maverick from the 30s, man. He makes movies from the gut. If he likes it, he's going to go make it. He knows what he likes. But I asked him, I go, what is it about scripts? What is it that most attracts you? And he said something really interesting, and I totally got it. He said, I like to read scripts where I read the first 10 pages and I don't know where it's going to take me. And I really understood what he meant because, look, you read a thriller, an erotic thriller, a crime thriller, and you meet the protagonist. You already know how it's going to end. You already know. Sometimes you'll get It's Live and Die in L.A. and Richard Chance will get shot in the face and it'll be different. But for the most part, you know how it's going to end. You know how a superhero story is going to end. The villains are going to be defeated. Unless you know it's going to be a 2-parter and Thanos will snap his fingers in the end. But you know. Roy Lee wants to make movies where he doesn't know. That's why we would get a movie like Zach Cregger's Barbarian that he produced. He found the script, championed Barbarian, and Roy told me nobody wanted to make Barbarian. Roy's like, I'm going to fucking make this movie. Because the reason Hollywood wants to make movies where they understand exactly how the movie's going to go. I get it. Roy Lee's like, nope, I don't want to do that. I want to make a movie like Barbarian. That's why he was able to set weapons up at Warner Brothers. They make that shit. If you look at what Warner Brothers did, and you look at like Sinners, original, auteurist vision. Weapons, original, auteurist vision. Both of those movies, $300 million on, Weapons, $38 million. You're going to make $300 million. That's what you want to be doing. That's a business you're going to be in. But Roy Lee will also tell you it is very hard to find those scripts because most people can't fucking write their way out of a paper bag, nor do they have really good ideas. It's not really, there's a lot of great stuff going on, but even A24 is becoming a parody of itself. No shade on A24. I'd love to make an A24 movie, but A24 is getting far up its own ass, and they got to step up their game. But Roy Lee, in 1 year, he gives us Companion, which is part of the Zach Cregger Mafia. That film is dope. If you haven't seen Companion, watch it. It's a lot of fun. You don't know where it's going to go. It plays out really, really well. And if you have managed to avoid what it's about, go find. Don't read about it. Don't go in cold. Do yourself a favor. Let's see. I am going to see what you guys are saying. What are you guys saying? Miss MTH says, "Hey Rob, screenplay question, if I may. Is adding too many scene transitions considered amateur hour? I find it only increases the total page count." What do you mean? Scene transitions like cut to? You don't need that. You don't need cut to. Anyone worth their salt, just say, interior if it's a house, if you're opening scenes in a house, and then you get out, just go exterior. Here's the thing. Here's a screenwriting a rule. I don't know if it's in a screenwriting book, but as somebody who's both written screenplays, I've only had one of my screenplays produced and I directed it, but I read screenplays for a living for years. Here's the thing. Here's my rule of thumb. Here's Robbie's rule of thumb for screenwriting. If you're going to put something in your screenplay that is a decision that somebody else will make, like a cut to, because you don't get to say when the movie's going to cut to that. That's something that will happen when the director and editor decide it will. If that decision will ultimately be made by somebody else, forget about it. You don't need it in your script. So you don't say extreme close-up on ECU, no camera directions. Don't tell the director how to direct in your script. No, you have to have very evocative language and you have to paint a picture of what's going on. But that's because you're an awesome wordsmith and you're going to craft, you're going to have 4 sentences of description. That's all. 4 sentences. Don't write half a page of description. It's 4 sentences. Hopefully it's 2 sentences or even 1 sentence. Boo, 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 boo. Keep that reader engaged. But if you're doing things or saying things in your script that you as the writer and have no control over, like camera directions, no. Unless, of course, there's something intrinsic, like I'll give you an example. The script I've been working on, there's a scene when the 2 main characters, the 2 villains, the protagonist and the antagonist first encounter each other. They don't really meet. One person's on a TV screen and the other's in a waiting room. And the way I've set it up is as if I'm going to make this movie. I hope I can. But the characters look like they're looking at each other through the character that's on TV is looking outward. He doesn't know that he's being looked at, but the character that's watching him on the screen feels that our antagonist is looking at him. Now, you can explain there, well, because I wrote it because I want to direct it, but maybe another director, I'm not going to sell that script anyway, who cares? But if it's essential and you're trying to create like a mood, like maybe they do sense each other, then you could do that. But for the most part, don't put any kind of direction, can we push in? Don't do any of that bullshit. Take it out. And scene transitions are the same thing. You don't have to say cut to. Cares? Just write interior, exterior, establishing. That's all you have to do. Don't worry about scene transitions. And by the way, to be honest, if you're a great screenwriter, you don't have to have your script perfectly formatted. It helps. You should, once your script is perfect, then but it's all about the content. And when you put too many things like cut to, people know you're an amateur. 2 Brads, 12-point courier on the cover. Maybe in bold for your title, maybe underlined. If you're going to go bold, don't go bold and underlined. Just go bold. But that's it. Don't put bold and don't put by and then your name bold. It's just the title, 12-point courier, no pictures, none of that bullshit. And 2 Brads. That's it. 2, not 3. Say it with me now. 2 Brads. Anyway, the Greyest Star says, how, in your opinion, did Mando Season 3 drop the ball? It was all terrible. I'll give you an example. You know when they first get to Mandalore, and there's the one episode where they go into the cave and down into Mandalore, then they come out of the cave, then they go down into the cave, and then they come back out of the cave like 4 times in one episode? Terrible. When you meet Katie Sackhoff in her, and she talks about this, but when I was watching the episode, so you have this whole scene where for whatever reason, she's in her throne, lounging in her throne, and Mando has to walk down this long corridor. And whose idea was that? Don't do that. All you have to do, give her a throne room, and Mando just comes in. Don't set up this long walk where it was so awkward and weird. And everything about that, I just think the whole thing was awkward and weird. If you watch that, it is like, I guess it's Baroque in its direction. I mean, nothing works. There's very few scenes that play out. Compare and contrast to like the Bill Burr episode of Mando in season 2. Like the scene when he's sitting down and he's explaining that raid to the Imperial commander or whatever, and the two of them are sitting. That's like a Quentin Tarantino scene. That was like the beginning of Mr. La Petite. It's the beginning of like Inglourious Bastards. That was great. But Mando, I mean, even the scenes, the way things are shot, everything is awkward and weird because they're shooting against the volume, so they can't make things like it all feels that way. I couldn't deal with. I liked Mando season 1 and 2, but when I got to season 3, I'm like, oh my God, none of this feels natural or real at all. And it was really frustrating. But, I haven't watched a lot of it lately, so I watched season 3 once, and I'm like, ugh, I didn't pay much attention. Jermanin, all the way from Finland, says, wish you well. Some book recommendations. Arnie Bott by Sierra Greer. The Ministry of Time by Kalaine Bradley, and Where the Axe is Buried by Ray Naylor. I've never heard of all 3 of those books. I'll have to ask Alvaro and consult. I always like book recommendations. I'll have to look into those. Everybody, let's look into those. Garrett Groover says, how will Paramount buying Warner Brothers affect Warner Brothers' home media division? Will Warner Archive still be around? First of all, You've heard me say this on Let's Get Physical Media. The greatest, bar none, executive that works in home entertainment is George Feltenstein, who runs Warner Archive. Why he's not in charge of all the studios as physical media becomes diminishing and Sony is like distributing Disney stuff, and they're not. They're doing. We'll see what happens if the Tron titles come out. It's not some monster debacle. But George Feltenstein is the fucking man. He's been working in home entertainment for 40 plus years. He knows where the bodies are buried, and he's had to weather the AT&T storm, the Discovery storm. He was let go, and then they brought him back. They had to bring him back because nobody knows more than he does. He's got institutional knowledge times 10. So in terms of physical media be around, I mean, all I know is this. I've never met him personally. I was hoping to work for him when we were going to do Living in Infamy with Skydance. But David Ellison's supposed to be a great guy. I would imagine he would want film history because what George Feltenstein is doing is overseeing the restorations of all these classic MGM and Warner Brothers movies. And if you look at Warner Archive's discs, they might not have like what Second Sight gives you with the slipcase version or whatever. But you get the best bit rates, the best transfers, kicks ass. Even the damn fool Idealistic Crusader picked Warner Archive as his favorite video company a couple years back, and that guy... He writes. He doesn't like anything. So if he likes Warner Archive, that says a lot. And if you check out Damn Fool Idealistic Crusader's channel, he loves James Bond. Even though he makes me mad, I love the guy. I've never met him. I've never talked to him. Damn Fool Idealistic Crusade or Crusader. I call him the Crusader, but that's his channel. Watch his channel. He is a true imagination connoisseur. Shout out to you, man. Yeah, I think it's a real good question. Paramount has no home video division anymore. They have literally licensed out they put out a few things, but they have mostly licensed out all their shit to other companies. Whether it's Vinegar Syndrome, whether it's Kino Lorber, everything is coming out. And if I dare say, may I ask a question? Where's Black Rain? Which company has Black fucking Rain? I love Black Rain. You know, women of the 80s are looking at shoes. It's the second place they're looking. Come on, man. Hans Zimmer score. Kate Capshaw looking radiant. Some of it's shot in Japan. Most of it's in downtown LA. I don't care. I love Black Rain. Give me Black Rain. 1989. Ridley Scott. It's awesome. Come on. Where's Black Rain? How can, with all the garbage, I shouldn't say garbage. I mean, I got Internal Affairs. Internal Affairs. Fucking great movie. Andy Garcia, speaking of Black Rain. And the Andy Garcia 1989 and 91-2 punch, Black Rain and Internal Affairs. If you haven't seen Internal Affairs, what is wrong with you? If you like cop thrillers, Internal Affairs is, Ron Vaughter is in Internal Affairs. Well, the cops are the cops. He passed away. But come on, man, you've got to watch. If you haven't watched Internal Affairs, watch it. What a score. And Black Rain. But nobody's put Black Rain out. I mean, they'll put out The Golden Child. I want the knife. Well, I'll get The Golden Child in 4K, but I can't get Black Rain? Why? Why can't I get Black Rain? Somebody give me Black Rain. That's a Ridley Scott. I got someone to watch over me, but no Black Rain? Come on, bruh. Black Rain's one of the only Ridley Scott movies that doesn't have like 4,000 cuts. No, it's got one cut. One cut. It's great. Where's Black Rain? I don't know. But the question is, will Warner Archive still be around? I goddamn well hope so, because that would be dumb. And they do a good job. By the way, Warner Archive just released their third 4K. After The Searchers, which was the bomb diggity, High Society. That's my beautiful slipcase they sent me in a box so it didn't get harmed. Get Carter. Mike Hodges, Michael Caine, Get Carter. Came out in 4K. It's beautiful. I think BFI already released their version, but hey, Warner Archive put it out. Chef's kiss. We'll be talking about that later. Darth Plato says, letter incoming, Rob. Well, Darth Plato, I can't wait. Always good to hear from you. 200-watt Studio says, I remember driving from Palm Springs to Vegas years ago. I loved getting gas there by the outlet mall. That's in Prim. Always wanted to go on that coaster, but never did. You know what? I don't remember if it's still there. They had a great coaster there, and that I went on that once. But I've done that in a long time. Hey, 200-watt Studio. I don't know if you noticed, but on December 3rd at the, I always want to say the Bellagio, the Belasco. If you didn't see this goes out to you, 200-watt Studio. On December 3rd at the Belasco in downtown LA, Wang Chung is celebrating, say it with me now, the 40th anniversary of To Live and Die in LA. I don't know if they're playing the whole soundtrack to the film. Don't know what they're doing, but I'm going to go Wang Chung tonight. You can bet your bottom dollar I already have my tickets. You know, it's going to be great. I'm waiting for you, and I can hardly wait. I know you'll come anyway. Whatever. We're going to have some dance hall days. I expect you there. Everybody who lives in the LA area, Belasco, December 3rd, Wang Chung, 40th anniversary of To Live and Die in LA. It's on my Instagram feed. I put it on X. Go check it out. Come on down. It's going to be a party. I even prepaid my parking. How about that? John Cross says, hey, Rob, I'm a big fan of the theater experience, and I've started reviewing theaters, sharing what they offer, and giving feedback. Hope you can check it out sometime. My channel is Crosstalks Movies. That's a cool name, Crosstalks Movies. I like that, John. Good job. Yeah, and you should, by the way, take particular note of the brightness of the projection in the theater. I have to say, shout out to the Regal Spectrum down in Irvine. We went and saw, as I probably told you guys already, I went and saw Conjuring Last Rites in their IMAX venue. First of all, it's a real IMAX screen. Looked fantastic. I've been sort of disappointed in the brightness levels of some of the horror films, and it's hard to say. I can't imagine, but that film was beautifully shot, and it looked fantastic in that venue. So I'll go back there again. We're going to go back there and see one battle after another. B Thing says GoldenEye, where Sean Bean dies twice. It's true. He does. He does twice. He dies in the beginning of the movie. At least you think he does. And then he comes back. So yeah, there you go. Jurassic Joey 17 became a member, or he's been a member for 16 months. Well, Jurassic Joey, cheers to you, son. Here's to you. Ryan sends in a super chat and says, George Martin was a scriptwriter in the 80s. That's why his dialogue in his novels are so crisp, economical, and punchy. Yeah, well, that's screenwriting teaches you that. Don Winslow is a great novelist, but his novels translate very well to movies, I think, if they're done correctly. I can't wait. One of my favorite trailers I've seen, it hasn't been released publicly, they showed it at CinemaCon, is a movie called, I think it's called Crime 101, and it's based on a Don Winslow novella, and it stars Chris Hemsworth. It looks great. Amazon's 2026 slate is banging, and can't wait to see that. Thomas Logan says, I've got my tickets for A24's The Smashing Machine in IMAX. Benny Safdie won Best Director at Venice, and The Rock is poised to get a Best Actor Oscar nod. Yeah, I can't wait, Thomas. I think it's going to be good. People really like it. I like those Safdie brothers. So yeah, that's it. That's what we want to see. And I got to tell you, you know what? He looks like he's totally that The Rock. I mean, I think The Rock is actually a fine actor. I mean, I liked him in Pain and Gain. I like when usually he's just playing variations on a theme. And I'm not going to lie, I like San Andreas. I had fun. That movie had excellent urban destruction and a great performance from The Rock doing what he does best. But The Smashing Machine looks like he's going to have a great performance. Can't wait to see it. It'd be fun to see it in IMAX. I hope A24 has a hit. They need it. Coach sipping Jamba Juice out of a straw says, I don't bother with trying to sell my scripts. I turn them into digital magazines and sell monthly subscriptions. I've turned that into a business. Well, that's fantastic. That's the way to do it, man. Absolutely. Kenny Colton says, over or under 20%, Bob will video chat with me for my 42nd birthday on September 23rd. Well, since it is your 42nd birthday, you know what 42 is. 42 is the answer to life, the universe, and everything, according to Douglas Adams. So maybe I will, but I wouldn't even know where to video chat with you, although I could find you. But remember, 42 is the answer, but what is the question? In your case, the question is, will I video chat with you for your 42nd birthday? It'll be like Citizen Kane. No man can say. We'll see. We will see. Benjamin Wood says, hi, Robert. You're a true gentleman. Well, am I? We'll see. That's not what she said. No, I'm always a gentleman because I practice my ladies first philosophy. Okay, so I'll leave that up to you to decide, and it's a philosophy that has worked well for me. Let's read a letter or two, shall we? Got some letters here. This one comes from Paul Anthony. Who are you? This is Paul Anthony from Detroit. And I happened to catch just the end of your podcast today, and you were talking about the manufacturing of discs and DVDs in America. I just wanted to say, Michigan was once the videotape capital of the world. Of the world. I didn't know that. I didn't even know this fact until I was reading some of my children's school papers. They're all grown up now. My youngest is 23 and I am 60. Well, congratulations for making it, Paul. Anyway, years ago, I worked at a Technicolor plant here in Detroit, where they processed VHS tapes and packaged them by the thousands. Shrek was one of their biggest. Wow. There were 30 production lines. At the time I started in 2005, there were only 5 doing VHS, and as time went on, it quickly got down to 1 hidden in a corner. But we were also doing DVDs and video games, discs and cartridges. Thousands and thousands a day. The demand was growing, and I guess there were plenty of movies to process. The operation got so big, they leased another factory building, a bigger one just outside of Detroit, in Livonia, so I worked in Livonia for a while. All the discs were burnt in Mexicali and shipped by truck to Michigan. Lots spent on transportation, so Technicolor made plans to move operations to Tennessee. Yeah. That's a little Prince reference for you. Closer to Mexico. Needless to say, I was unwilling to relocate. I don't know if they still exist. I haven't been with the company since 2014. I moved on to Target. But yeah, times and industry do change so fast. So hard to make a buck these days. I first saw you on Campia. I found you to be very informed. When I look at you, I see the little boy inside. Excited for the next big thing. Well, you see me right. That's the way I am. It's tough in this day and age to keep that boyish enthusiasm, the inner man-child, cooking. I will keep cooking as long as I can, but it's tough in these days. I don't do these things, but I felt compelled to write. I hope you don't mind. Absolutely not. I loved hearing from you. What a great memory of working on the VHS, the manufacturing lines of VHS. I wish I could have seen that. You know, I worked in home video for 8 years, from the time I was 13 to the time I was 18, and then I left. From 1980 to 1988. So, I mean, that's 8 years, but yeah, I guess that's right. But 13 to 18 seems like it's only 5 years. But anyway. I don't do these things, but I felt compelled to write. I hope you don't mind. No, man, I love hearing from you. And now you have a little insight into some part of the media world. Thanks for your time, Paul Anthony. Well, Paul Anthony, thank you for that. I've never met anyone, and I worked in home entertainment, that worked on the VHS manufacturing line. I would have loved to have seen that. I really would have loved to have seen that. Home video was such a huge part of my life. So, yeah, that's great. Thanks for writing in. I really appreciate it. That's really cool. Let's see this next one. Hang on. Let's see. I'm going to zoom in. I'm getting older, so my sight. This one comes from Robert Coleman. Robert Coleman says, "Hi, Rob. I hope all is well, my friend. This letter is addressing the potential buyout of Warner Brothers by Paramount. By the time you read this letter, it may have already happened or maybe not. Well, it can't happen yet. But regardless, can you explain to me why would Warner Brothers want to be bought out? Are they that deep in debt? Well, they are in debt, that they see no other options. Well, look, as with anything, money. It's if they can make some money on it and pay off those shareholders and make everybody happy, that's how the world goes around. Are they that desperate, or are they just forgetting about their legacy that is the Brothers Warner established in 1923? Like you, I love the old classic studios and the legacies each one is or was known for. Now you're getting into the nitty-gritty. This is the important part. Warner Brothers was established in 1923. Like you, I love the old classic studios. In the early days, Warner's was known as the gangster studio. Indeed, introducing us to tough guys like Edward G. Robinson, James Cagney, and Humphrey Bogart. It made some of the most memorable swashbucklers with Errol Flynn, like Adventures of Robin Hood, Captain Blood, and the Seahawk. It introduced the world to Looney Tunes, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, The Matrix, the Monsterverse, and of course, the DC Universe. Through all that time, one thing I always enjoyed was seeing the giant Warner Brothers shield pop up at the beginning of each film. I know, in this day and age, mergers happen all the time. I can choose to ignore it, just like every time I see the 20th Century Fox logo, which I choose to disassociate with Disney. Although they've maintained that, look, the 20th Century Fox logo is my favorite, and the Fox fanfare is my favorite. So I'm glad that we can still see it. I'm glad that the great quiet king of franchises, the president of 20th Century Studios, Steve Asbell, keeps us cooking. Predator Badlands, baby, with that 20th Century Studios logo. Remember, 20th Century Fox used to be called 20th Century Studios, so they've gone back to their old classic name. And we're getting a Predator movie in 235 with that CinemaScope extension, which has the dun-dun-dun-dun, 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 which is added to their I mean, I hope they'll keep that because that's the widescreen. Lucasfilm, everyone knows. Even if Disney does own 20th Century, to me, it will always be 20th Century Fox. Well, 20th Century Studios was where it began. Are we going to see all the original studios just merge with other studios going forward? I know many would say, why does it matter as long as they keep making good content, or why does it matter who makes it? While these may be valid points, these mergers just don't sit right with my inner film historian. I agree, totally agree. In a way, it marks the end of an era. I'm trying to look at it in the same way you look at films, old and new, as just being part of the same continuum, and perhaps movie studios should be viewed in the same way. It's just part of evolution. Am I just turning into the old man hanging on to a long-gone past in a rapidly changing society? Yeah, but so what? Be that iconoclast. Doesn't tradition and legacy mean anything anymore? Well, it is what it is, I guess. Will we still keep getting the movies? And there is always the promise of what a new era can bring. But at the same time, it saddens me that the classic era of Warner Brothers is ending. Thanks, Rob, and rock on, Robert. Well, I would say this. Hasn't ended yet. And the world is changing. And I've always said, and I really believe this, that motion pictures were the great art form of the 20th century. The feature film, I think, will belong to the 20th century, and I do believe, look, you can always say that everybody's, there's always going to be movies or something, but I think that technology and the evolution of our technology, especially in the next 15 years, is going to make movies are going to seem quaint. I'm always going to love movies because I grew up with them, but the younger generation has not the attachment to film that we do. I would love to see, here's the thing about losing studios, is that like Steve Asbell, even though he's the president of 20th Century, he can't do whatever he wants. He still has his Disney overlords. And the Quiet King of Franchises has managed. I mean, we got two Predator movies this year. We got Killer of Killers and we're getting Badlands. That was Steve Asbell, man. That was Steve Asbell making that shit happen. We're going to start seeing original theatrical movies that are coming out of 20th Century Studios, finally. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Look, the next movie, it should be Crusade for the Planet of the Apes, Empire of the Planet of the Apes, and Fall of the Planet of the Apes. You can have that, Steve. I know I already told you this, but you take that. Or you can have Empire of the Planet of the Apes, Crusade for the Planet of the Apes, and then Fall of the Planet of the Apes. But, do that. Make that happen. I want to see a trilogy. Go make it. But they're doing a lot of great stuff over there. And the thing about studios is what you want, it's the people that work at the studios. And I say that, I mean the creative executives, the people running the studios, what they want to make, what they want to specialize in. That's what we need. And the thing is, the town needs, the more buyers it has, the more distributors it has, the more, I mean, we barely got any distributors left. Like in the 70s, you had 10,000 different small labels that were making movies that they were distributing in drive-ins all over the place, regionally. And now, with 3 or 4 studios, the big spectacle events are kind of homogenized. You want the different attitudes and the different things that different studios bring to you. But if we're going to lose that, look, I don't want to lose the rich legacy of all of these movies. I don't. I really don't. But the world does change. I mean, movies themselves, as much as I want them to matter, kids today do not love movies the way that we love movies. They love them differently. And what I like seeing is when the new generation gets their own classics. Demon Slayer making $70 million, an anime film coming from Japan. I mean, think about it. The #1 movie in the country this week, $70 million opening, was a Japanese film repurposed here in America. I mean, a foreign film was made #1 by the kids. A foreign film. When was the last time that happened? And that's amazing. That is amazing. And I think that's really, really exciting. That's what we want to see. And of course, they just picked that movie up for distribution. I don't know if they put in any, I think it was Crunchyroll, right? I mean, this is an amazing thing for the world. That K-pop Demon Hunters, different movie. That Demon Slayer made so much money. And like when we were at Long Walk yesterday, I was having late lunch, dinner, whatever, with my friend Ellie, and she and I were sitting there, and she was pointing out that look at all of the people that were coming and going dressed up as Demon Slayer characters. It was pretty cool. I mean, that's what you want. And to see, I always think that a generation has to have its own pop culture. One of the problems with all these franchises is you're expecting new generations to embrace things that were made popular by generations, sometimes generations ago. And that isn't fair. You need to give generations their own pop culture that they can claim. And the Demon Slayer franchise is theirs. And it comes from a foreign country, which is amazing. So, I mean, that's pretty amazing. So, I mean, you got to love that, right? And I do think, this letter has something really fun that I have to show. Let me show it to you. So, this next letter comes from Darren Goodhart. And he writes, I was meant to write a while back, but I just hadn't the opportunity. I know you've mentioned Zardoz, both here and on Film Threat Versus before, and I gotta say, when I first saw the movie, my reaction was, what the hell was that? But I still had a fascination with it. When Zardoz came to DVD, I bought it, and I had my eyes opened a little more during that watch, and even more so when I was listening to the John Borman commentary track. I later got the Twilight Time Blu-ray of the movie, and now it has become a huge favorite of mine. Good man. I used to draw comics before, and you were certainly kind enough a while back to show one of my drawings, which was a Superman in the public domain design. And I just had this idea to do a faux comic book cover for Zardoz. Okay, you are a man after my own heart. Let's show you this faux comic book cover for Zardoz. And for those of you who don't know what Zardoz is, shame on you. But actually, I just picked up the wrong cover for Zardoz, and I'm sorry for that. That was not where I wanted to go. Hold on. This is actually a lot of fun. So here it is. Here's his faux. By the way, that is the actual logo for the movie. Zardoz speaks to you. My inspiration was John Romita's cover for Marvel's Amazing Adventures 18, which introduced us to Killraven. How cool. Well, doing a little research, I think Neil Adams' designs for both Killraven and the stage play Warp, featuring wasn't that Stuart Gordon doing the stage play for Warp? Featuring a similarly costumed Lord Cumulus, came out a few months before Zardoz. Zardoz, of course, got laughed at by many because of how Sean Connery was costumed at the start of the film, but to me, I just always saw it as a classic pulp science fiction look. Me too. And I often wondered if Borman saw Neil Adams' artwork. I'm sure he did. Anyway, I had a lot of fun drawing this, and I've got to say, while drawing this, and even afterwards, I've often thought about adapting Zardoz as a comic just for my own fun. I hope you get a kick out of this. I do. I love this. I'm just assuming you know about the stage play Warp, which was directed by Stuart Gordon, pre-Reanimator, which was adapted to comics by First Comics. Yes, I had all of those issues. It always struck me as a missed opportunity that Warp was never optioned for TV or movies. There is something that could be very special and unique there, but I digress. Thanks for the great entertainment, Rob. That is, of course, Darren Goodhart. And Darren Goodhart has done this comic cover, and this delights me to no end. And of course, that's the flying head. And by the way, that flies through the opening of the credits where you hear Beethoven's Seventh Symphony playing. Now, I'm sure some of you are probably going, what the hell is that? So, before he directed Exorcist II the Heretic, and after he directed Deliverance, Excalibur director John Borman made a movie, I don't know why I was talking like that, but made a movie called Zardoz. I don't want to ruin the joys of it. But Zardoz takes place in the far future, and most of the world is a brutal place, and it is being presided over by brutal men. They rape, they pillage, and they're given guns, and this giant stone head floats around and there's a voice in his head that it makes proclamations like, the gun is good, the penis is evil, trying to control the population through a weird faux religion. Now, I don't want to ruin it. I'm not going to tell you where this goes. But there's also a group of human immortals that live in basically this bucolic paradise, far away from the brutals of the rest of the world. But these immortals are bored. They can't die. And they're bored to tears. And that's all you need to know. But I'm a huge fan of 70s dystopian science fiction. And when I was growing up as a kid, Star Wars hadn't come out. When I was a little kid, I'd see movies like The Ultimate Warrior, No Blade of Grass, ZPG, which stood for Zero Population Growth, that stars Oliver Reed. And then, of course, there were the more well-known movies like The Omega Man. There was Soylent Green. There was The Final Program. And then, of course, you got to the more... Zardoz was definitely one of them I loved. Logan's Run. As a matter of fact, Zardoz and Logan's Run make a great double feature. A Boy and His Dog, starring a very young Don Johnson. Rollerball, Norman Jewison's Rollerball. There was something about 70s dystopian sci-fi that I couldn't get enough of when I was a kid. And then, of course, Star Wars came out in 1977 and ruined all that. No one was making dystopian science fiction. Although if Blade Runner was made in the early 70s, it would have fit right in. But if you want to see some great dystopian 70s sci-fi, those are some movie titles I just announced that you should check out. You have to understand, these movies don't even look like the movies of today. They look dusty, dirty, lower budget. But Zardoz was actually shot, if memory serves, by Jeffrey Unsworth, who shot Superman the movie. And when that giant stone head is floating, it's pretty awesome. It's miniature shots, but it was dope. Like Excalibur, when John Borman was shooting Excalibur, he would go out to I don't know if it was Ireland that he was shooting, Scotland, somewhere around there, but it's pretty awesome. And yeah, that's the movie where Sean Connery's wearing a diaper. But don't make fun of it. Excuse me. You got to check it out. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. It's probably streaming somewhere. Somebody's got to. It's Fox Film. I joked once that Alex Garland should remake Zardoz for 20th Century Fox. Why don't they go back and do that? Because no one's seen it. And another great 70s that's becoming more prescient than ever is Colossus the Forbin Project. I watched a great YouTube video about it today. It was on, I don't know which channel it was on, but Colossus the Forbin Project, if you've never heard of Colossus the Forbin Project, it's great. Another one, okay, here's another great. Here's a great Computers Are Bad and AI is Coming for You 70s double feature that predates The Terminator by a big margin. And trust me when you watch this double feature, you're going to come back and you're going to thank the Bobster here for this one. Colossus the Forbin Project and Demon Seed. And by the way, don't read anything about them. Go in cold, especially on Demon Seed. Demon Seed is not about, it's not supernatural. They're both technologically minded films. And even though it has nothing to do, another great dystopian movie that it's very, if you've never seen it, you should see it. Phase 4. If you've never seen Phase 4, you got to see that. It was the only movie directed by the great title designer Saul Bass, who did the credit design for movies like Otto Preminger's Anatomy of a Murder. He directed this movie Phase 4, and let me tell you, Phase 4 used to freak the fuck out of me when I was a kid. When it would come on, I'd watch it. That movie scared the shit out of me. And if I tell you it's a movie about ants, that's all I'm going to say. But Demon Seed, Colossus the Forbin Project, and Phase 4. As a matter of fact, you should watch them you should watch Colossus first, Demon Seed, and then Phase 4. Phase 4 has nothing to do with Colossus or Demon Seed. If you want a trilogy, round it out. And that was another great. The 70s, before Star Wars came out, there were so many great 70s sci-fi films. If you've not seen the original Rollerball with James Caan and Maud Adams, future Bond girl. Actually, Maud Adams was in Rollerball after she was in Man with the Golden Gun, after she was a Bond girl, and before Octopussy. But watch those movies because they're all dope. All those 70s, and look, it's going to take some patience. I understand that, but you're giving yourself a whole new realm of things to watch if you delve into those movies. So yeah, check those out. Zardoz. And yeah, this pretty much captures it. Not bad. Charlotte Rampling is in Zardoz, looking just effervescent. And by the way, if you don't want to watch these movies, and if it's not your jam, do yourself a favor and watch the trailer for Zardoz. It's really long. It's like 3.5 minutes. And if you're never going to watch Zardoz, you'll know it. There are two kinds of people in the world. There are people that are going to watch the trailer of Zardoz and go, nah, it's not for me. And then there's going to be other people that go, fuck yeah, I got to see that movie. And I love you both. Yeah, I love you both. Because I totally understand. Zardoz is not everyone's jam. It is not. It isn't. But if you watch the trailer, because watching the trailer for Zardoz, you'll know exactly what you're in for. Exactly what you're in for. So Zardoz, Soylent Green, Rollerball, Logan's Run, The Last Days of Man on Earth, a.k.a. The Final Program, The Ultimate Warrior, No Blade of Grass, Zero Population Growth, Colossus the Forbidden Project, Demon Seed. Just look up 70s dystopian sci-fi thrillers. Come on, you can't go wrong. And if you want to throw something in just wacky that's not really a 70s dystopian sci-fi thriller, but watch the Japanese movie Matango. You'll trust me. You'll trust me. You'll like it. Amir Nizam. I hope I got that right. Amir Nizam, Amer. It's Amer Nizam, as I've been corrected. Amer writes in. Okay, Amer. I hope this note finds you well. I wanted to ask, what's the most recent film that stayed with you? One you just can't seem to shake. For me, it's a little-known 1983 film by John Huckart called The Passing. It's available on Blu-ray via Vinegar Syndrome. Wow, that's wild. But I'd recommend going in blind as the synopsis gives away too much. I'll only say that it's a poetic sci-fi drama where two men cross paths in an unforgettable way. I don't know this movie. And if it's on Vinegar Syndrome, I love Vinegar Syndrome. I must go, hang on. Since you brought it up, let's go consult with the, because Vinegar Syndrome, Cult Preservation, The Passing. By the way, they have great X-rated titles as well. Just saying. Classic bush porn. The Passing. Okay. Let's see. There it is. The Passing. Wow, when did they put this out? Huh. I won't read the synopsis, but I guess you can't get the limited edition slipcase. There's only 286 left in stock. Wow. I do not know this movie. And it came out in 1983. It's 96 minutes. Wow. All right. I'll have to look it up. The Passing is a dazzling micro-budget examination of love, loneliness, and the fear of death, set against an increasingly surreal science fiction and horror background. How do I not know this movie? Wow. What a great suggestion, Amara. That's really cool. I'm in. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts if you've seen it. I have not, or if you end up seeking it out. I'm going to go buy that shit. Alternatively, I'd be happy to mail you my extra copy. I have an extra because it's that good. If you're able to kindly make time to see it, well, send me another email. If you're going to send me a copy, do you have one that has a slipcase? Thanks as always for the insight and passion that you bring to your channel. Best wishes, Amer. Well, thank you, Amer. I really appreciate that. What a great... I don't know anything about this movie, which if weird sci-fi low-budget movies slip underneath my radar, I don't know everything. I'm always learning new things, and I would love to go see that. Heck yeah. But you know what? Let me belay that order and let me go buy it. I mean, I buy a lot of stuff from Vinegar Syndrome. I do believe in supporting smaller boutique labels for putting stuff like that out, and that's actually on their own Vinegar Syndrome label. So I would buy it to support Vinegar Syndrome. By the way, if you want another movie from 1983 that Vinegar Syndrome put out, I don't know if they still have it. One of my favorite It's an 80s sci-fi movie that is set in the New York punk fashion world. Is, of course, the great Liquid Sky. If you haven't seen Liquid Sky, I mean, we were Liquid Sky acolytes when I was in junior high and high school. Actually, I think mostly high school. I probably saw it when I was in high school. Liquid Sky, man. If you've never seen Liquid Sky, look up the trailer for Liquid Sky. If you know, you know. Now you do. Liquid Sky, directed by Slava Sukerman. What's really interesting about Liquid Sky, so Slava Sukerman was a Russian director. I think he only made this. This was his only movie. I relate. So it's his only movie, and he was dreaming about this when he lived in the Soviet Union. He came to America, and he made it in New York. But Liquid Sky is what he thought America was like before he'd ever been here, which I just think is the coolest thing ever. And when you watch Liquid Sky, you're like, that tracks. I'll tell you what Liquid Sky is about. First of all, I'll give you the briefest of synopses. It's basically set in the New York punk fashion world where you've got this male and female model that are very competitive, played by the same actress, Anne Carlisle. And it's awesome. And then they have Paula Shepherd plays their weird drug dealing friend. And there's all these cool fashions and weird fashion shows and all that. What they do not know is that an alien being that lives or lands in a dinner plate sized flying saucer on top of her apartment. It's landed there, and it's being sought out by a German ufologist that's come to America to track this alien craft down. And the alien feeds off the opiate in the human brain, I'm not kidding, produced at the moment of orgasm. So when you climax, this opiate is released in your brain, makes you feel good. But the alien feeds on it, and what it does is it fires a crystalline shard into your brain as it's eating the. You never see it. It's this weird. You have to just watch this movie, okay? And it's very much a punk rock phantasmagoria, really low budget, but awesome. And Vinegar Syndrome put it out. It was so awesome. I thought the negative was lost forever. I had the DVD, and I thought this is the only time I'm ever going to own this movie. And then Vinegar Syndrome put out a kick-ass copy of Liquid Sky with all these extra features. And I think some German company released a 4K version of it, but I don't know if that's true. I desperately want, I was able to get a German media book of David Cronenberg's Shivers. Dieter got that for me. Or no, I ordered that myself. And it's awesome. And I would love to get Liquid Sky in 4K. But it's one of those movies, it's really hard to, I have to say, it's really hard to recommend to anybody now to go back and watch these movies that came out in 1983 because they're done in such a low budget way. They look to the eyes of today that they're very amateur-esque. And even I would recognize, unless you're really into offbeat movies like that, it's hard if you're more mainstream. And I'm not condemning you for mainstream sensibility. I'm just saying it gets harder to watch these really sort of undergroundy, especially New York underground. You go watch if you're a horror fan and you go watch Abel Ferrara's Driller Killer or Frank Henlotter's Basket Case. I love grungy New York movies that are set in grungy New York in the 70s where the grunge is just dripping off the screen. But they're not for everybody. And if you tell somebody to go watch Basket Case or watch Driller Killer, I mean, these are really grungy movies. And when people watch them, they're like, these don't look like the slick movies we get from Hollywood. No, because there was a lot of low budget indie filmmakers in New York that were making this because the art scene then was crazy. Liquid Sky comes out of that, but Liquid Sky is much slicker. It has a lot of neon in it and a lot of neon light. It's beautifully photographed. It's just a little strange. I mean, the whole movie's strange, but like I told you, but pick it up. But The Passage, Vinegar Syndrome, same company. As a matter of fact, you can all go right now. There's 800 copies of The Passage. You know what? Now I want to know, does Vinegar Syndrome do they have Liquid Sky? I don't know. Let's see, shall we? And now I'm being self-indulgent. Hang on. They don't. It's sold out. I'm sorry. It's sold out. Maybe you can find it. I don't know if it's streaming somewhere. That sucks. Maybe they lost the rights. God damn, this disc was great, though. So good. But you can't have mine. Sorry. Never mind. You'll have to keep this. You know what? If you want to find Liquid Sky, you do your Uncle Bob proud, and you go find it and you report back. So the passage you can still get. So there you go. Fantastic. But anyway, I'm done with the letters. Let me see if anybody has anything else to say. If they've sent in anything else, I don't want to miss anyone's. You know what I realized I didn't look at? I didn't see if anyone sent me tips, and they did indeed. So here we go. Of course, 1001 Johnny says, these religious types are the original virtue signalers. Uh-oh. If you're not bragging about your good deeds, then share. That was the most encouraging story I heard to start the week. Thank you, Rob. Well, thank you, 1001 Johnny. If you go look at my Instagram post, you can see me getting pilloried for it. Now, in the Bible, it says if you do something nice for somebody, you're not supposed to talk about it. I'm like, I wasn't talking about it to get accolades, but whatever. 1001 Johnny goes on to say, also, lest I forget, Ultraman episodes 10 and 14, the mysterious dinosaur base, the Pearl Defense Directive, and the Return of Ultraman episode, the monster is a giant shooting star. In Space Ultraman, Omega, Episode 2, The Alien Scholar, and I. I do hope you're able to get around to Ultraman at some point soon, Rob. Otherwise, we will come to the point where I'll have to just recommend the whole franchise at once. That's not as fun as recommending individual episodes. Well, 1001 Johnny, you are correct. And Mario Lopez, all the way from Portugal, celebrates 53 months of membership. Well, Mario, you say hi to your mother for me. You know I always say that. Thank you very much. And thank you for being a member. And I miss you. I miss you coming in the member chat this weekend. For you members, we're back in the chat this weekend, 11 a.m. Pacific. Join us. Join us. Like the Evil Dead. Join us. We're coming into the chat hot. We haven't done it in like a month. I want to hear what you're saying. Mostly I want to hear what happened to Roberto in Japan. Can't wait to do all that. So a little bit on the channel. A lot of interesting stuff on the channel I wanted to talk to you about before I leave. So first of all, my friend Rob G and his compatriots have written a book. It's a compilation of their interviews with horror film luminaries. I think I talked about it in the beginning. Directors, producers, actors, called Icons of Fright. It is available now on Amazon. And you can get it a Kindle version, you can get a softcover version, and you can get a hardcover version at Amazon right now. And to support the release of this book, Rob has done a podcast, a 5-episode podcast, talking to his friends and he who made this. It's a compilation of all the interviews they did over like 20 years. I will be dropping those on the channel. They will be the Icons of Fright podcast starting this Thursday, leading up to Halloween. Every Thursday for the next 5 weeks, we're going to have the Icons of Fright podcast. And if you are interested, the podcast is actually really good. It's really informative. The guys are really smart. They're really fun to listen to. So that will go up on Thursday. You can check that out at your leisure. But more importantly, go get the book Icons of Fright on Amazon. Get it however you want to get it. It's a great book. The hardcover is pretty dope. So go order the book. It's really, if you like reading interviews with horror people, you know, I mean, I love that. I love reading filmmaker interviews, but there's a lot of stuff. There's even Rob G did some new interviews with one of the bros that did Bring Her Back, you know, and Talk to Me. So that's in there. And John Watts, he interviewed John Watts, Cop Cars John Watts, who went on to do Spider-Man movies. So it's a really great book. It's big and thick and chunky. So that's coming. White Devils. I am working. If you live locally in LA, we're going to have a theatrical premiere of White Devils, venue to be announced close to Halloween. So you'll be able to see the movie in a theater. We're going to have a Q&A afterwards. So White Devils, it'll be the world premiere, and we're going to have simultaneously an internet premiere where I haven't figured out if it's going to be $8 or $9, but you'll be able to watch it. There'll be a 24-day, or probably the same day as the theatrical premiere, where you'll be able to watch the film no matter where you are in the world. It's not, unfortunately, subtitled in different languages, but White Devils will also be at the end. People can finally see it, world premiere, and it is very R-rated, just so people know. It deals with adult subject matter. Let's just say that. So I'm very excited to put White Devils out into the world. You can see that. I'm working on the legality for the short story competition. So for those of you who don't know or might be interested, we're going to run a short story competition. I've always wanted to, I love anthologies and short stories and all that. So we're going to do a book called The Imagination Connoisseurs. We were going to do this years ago, but we're really going to do it. And the contest, to enter the contest, the entry fee is going to be steep. Because now that anybody can use AI to generate a story, I'm trying to avoid that because I'm going to make no mistake, I will be running stuff on all the stories that are submitted to check out and see if they're AI. Don't do that. We want to hear from you. So the book is going to be called The Imagination Connoisseurs. And I would say that write a short story. You can write about anything. Science fiction, fantasy, and horror are always what we're looking for. But I also want people to write stories about yourselves. Like, what does it mean? What is an imagination connoisseur? I made that term up. Instead of calling somebody a nerd or a geek, I'm like, I want something more highbrow and highfalutin. So I came up with the term for you, the audience, imagination connoisseurs. You could write a short story about when you became one. Was there a moment in your life when you went to a movie, or maybe there was a galvanizing moment when a pet died, or something? And if you could write a story, if you wrote Stand By Me, but a short story, 10,000 words or less, and I think we're going to pay competitive rates. So eventually what we're going to do is, once we have the stories all done, we're going to publish a book. We're going to do I've always wanted to have I love my small press slipcased hardcover. We're going to do that. And we will be crowdfunding the book. So I know there's no way I can afford to pay for one of these books that I want. I want to make it the way I want to make it. So we'll run the short story competition until the end of the year, probably till January 31st. I'll launch it like October 1st. So you've got 3 months to write your story or come up with one. Then we're going to end the story, and hopefully by then I'll be finished with all the perks for True Noir. And then I'll crowdfund the book and then run the crowdfunding campaign, and hopefully I will publish it as a birthday present to myself on May 15th, 2026. So that's the story. And by the way, we did talk about this. So people did, if you entered stories from we're talking during the pandemic almost, we have those stories and those are still in play. You don't have to do anything else. But you will have to file a different release. You'll have to have a different release. So if BL Alley is out there, and maybe he still is. I hope he is. BL, if you still want to submit. So those are just things that are coming along. And I'm excited about that. Maybe we're going to bring back Let's Get Physical Media, about whining about movies. Elizabeth and I are talking about it. We'll finally give out the awards for the film festival. I know. I'm not making light of it. I'm just saying. Let's see what else is going on. Benjamin Wood said, John Cross says, happy birthday today to Kenny. I'll be 29 on the 24th. Wow, happy birthday, gents. Jurassic Joey says, congrats, Rob, for getting your special features on the Tron 4K. This is very cool. So here's another thing. So back in 2002, when I worked for a company called Curdy Pellerin, while we started work on the extended version of Lord of the Rings and the special features on Fellowship, I was working on both. I was working on the Fellowship of the Ring special features, and I also made a feature-length and 88-minute video documentary on the making of Tron for its 20th anniversary disc. The Tron celebrated its 20th anniversary in 2002. The 40th anniversary was in 2022, and now we're at the 43rd anniversary of Tron. So this week, Tron and Tron Legacy both come out in 4K, and there's a Blu-ray included, and on that Blu-ray is my feature-length documentary on the making of Tron. Jeff Bridges is in it, Bruce Boxleitner is in it, Barnard Hughes is in it, Cindy Morgan is in it, Harrison Ellenshaw is in it, Jeff Bridges, of course, I think I said that. I'm really proud of that documentary. I made it like a Cinefex article. It's pretty academic, and it's not like flashy. We did it 23 years ago. But I'm really proud of that documentary. It's a 4-part documentary. Really, really, there's some interesting stories behind when we made it, but it is on the 4K, so I'm really excited about it. If you don't have a 4K, if you just type in the making of Tron, you can watch it on YouTube as well. Shh, don't tell anybody that. So anyway, and on that note, I don't think I'm done, actually. But I appreciate that you mentioned that. Thomas Logan says, glad Fede Alvarez got the boot from Alien. I want Holly. I think they probably won't go with Holly. Alien Earth is pretty divisive within Fox. So we'll see. B Thing says, it feels like you and John Suntress keep mentioning Colossus lately. My dad suggested it to me several years ago from a 30-year-old. Me. Well, there's a reason why we mentioned Colossus. Colossus might very well wind up being one of the most prophetic science fiction movies ever made. It was made in the wake of 2001. It came out in 1970. And it's literally about an AI that takes over the world, but not like Skynet. And it's very interesting. And again, there's a double feature. You want to go for a great early 70s double feature. Watch Colossus, the Forbin Project. On this YouTube video I actually watched today before I went on the show, I watched this video that said you can't find Colossus, the Forbin Project very much. Of course, because the tech bros don't want you to watch Colossus because they'll be like, why are you looking into AI when in 1970 they told you don't do that? But Colossus, the Forbin Project, and the Andromeda Strain. That is a banging double feature. Interestingly enough, Colossus is a Universal movie, and they released the Laserdisc of that and Silent Running, which is another great early 70s science fiction movie, directed by Douglas Trumbull, who did the special effects for Blade Runner. So they came out, literally you bought the Laserdisc, it was a gatefold sleeve, and you got Colossus and Silent Running in widescreen. Now, I have those. You can find Colossus on Blu-ray. It's not hard to find. And Andromeda Strain, a 4K came out from Arrow. It's stunning. So I would get both to have in your collection. They're both really entertaining. Yes, the technology is horribly dated. And you will laugh when you see how big Colossus actually is. You will laugh. But it's still badass. It's still badass. So get it. But that's why we keep talking about Colossus. It's very prophetic. 1001 Johnny, I'm sorry. I went back and got tips. I looked. B Thing says, thoughts on the Enterprise D Lego. My jury is out on the Enterprise D Lego. I'm really excited for it. But I need to see it up close. I need to see it built, unless somebody dropped more pictures of it today. B Thing says, I meant to say that I watched Colossus. Oh, and I liked it. Yeah, it's you know what's funny? When you watch a movie like Colossus, you're like, this movie was made in 1970. Wildly entertaining still. You know, you watch it's like, it still has a very modern sensibility. It's very cool. There's a lot of stuff going on in Colossus. It was also beautiful widescreen photography. It was at the time, it was made for $2 million. Remember, it was 1969 when they were shooting it in the post-2001 world. And it tanked. It's interesting. They released, at first it was just released as the Forbin Project because Eric Braeden plays Dr. Forbin, and it made no money. And then they re-released it as Colossus, the Forbin Project. Colossus is actually based on a trilogy of books. And it's like, I want to say D.W. Pabst, but that's not who wrote Colossus. But anyway, check it out and, read the books if you want to. Colossus and the Crab. So, yeah. And on that note, I'm going to end this stream. It's past 12. I got to take the garbage out. They dump the garbage tomorrow, so I got to do that. I got work to do. I got to go to bed. I got more videos to make. I got so much work to do. Remember, look out for the Icons of Fright podcast. You can go right now to Amazon and get the books. Support Rob and the team that made Icons of Fright. It's really a nice book, and it really has a lot of great material in it. And the Icons of Fright podcast is really entertaining. So look for that. And don't not watch it because I'm not in it. People are like, well, whenever I had somebody else on the channel, not a lot of people watched. But please watch the Icons of Fright podcast because it's good. And I want to support the book. So check it out. Go to Amazon right now, Icons of Fright. And if you don't want to spend a lot of money, get it on the Kindle. So, on that note, I want to thank my moderating staff. I know Justin Toner quit moderating the Facebook group today, and I don't blame him. So, yeah. Hey, wait, somebody said I miss a lot of tips. I don't see any tips other than 1001 Johnny. No one else sent in any tips tonight. Just so you know, I looked. I forget because you have to go to a different place for tips. So So I apologize. I try not to miss them. Oh, Mr. Nizam's here. Says Liquid Sky, The Passing, and Phase 4 are next to each other as I arrange my movies by label and then alphabetically. Wild coincidence. Well, I'm glad you heard your letter being read. I'm glad you have Liquid Sky because it's sold out. And that Phase 4 disc, both of those, by the way, are Vinegar Syndrome's discs, and I'll get The Passing, but I have to have that slipcase. I got to get the slipcase. Do you have the slipcase? If you have 2 of those, I got to get that. I can't believe I haven't seen it. Phase 4. That Phase 4 disc they put out's dope. 4K Phase 4. Anyway, where was I? I want to thank everybody for generously supporting this channel via memberships, super chats, tips, all those things. Thank you so much. It keeps these other projects going on, and you're going to see the Roy Lee interview this week. But man, I got to lose 50 pounds. I looked at myself and I'm like, shit, man, I'm getting fat. No more sedentary lifestyle. But anyway, I'll handle that too. But that's what's going on. And I want to thank you all for being here. And I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to do a lot of shows for the rest of the month. A lot of stuff to do. So remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I would say to all of you, have a better night. And we will see you on the next show. Thanks very much, everybody. And you're great. Oh, MS Lizard said, a tip of my hat to you, sir, and good night. And to you too.